Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Jeff Needs Sports. This is Super Bowl. We'll call it Super Bowl week. It's the lead up to the Super Bowl. It's Off the Ball Network. Tonight we're doing something kind of fun, something I came up with in the last minute, and I got one of the best in the business to help me. I got Mo Murphy from Up in Flames, and we're going to talk about who we think are the best five players playing in the Super Bowl game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams. Mo Murphy, how are you tonight?
Hey, I'm good, Jeff. Quick little show. Always great when you and me link together. I feel like we just have the chemistry. We get our notes together, but I'm like, we just go. We
Yeah,
just get.
absolutely. That's why I said our pre-shows would be we could do a podcast out of them. I don't, most of the time I should probably just start hitting record as soon as we get started and save
Yeah, just
ourselves the
kick it out.
trouble.
That's where some of our better conversations come from is pre-show and post-show anyway.
Yeah, no doubt. So before I reveal the list, I gave you this assignment, quote unquote assignment. How did you come up with your top five? Basically, what was the quick criteria in your mind that you came up with your top five?
I mean, mine for me was talent, obviously. Like just who are the five best players when they step on the field, but then kind of ranking them and distinguishing who goes where was impact that I think they'll have on this game. I think that was also important. And then I also thought about it. I'm like, man, I think the Rams. It was almost a point to me where I was like, the Rams might have the five best players on the field, and then we start going after that. Obviously, there's one guy we'll get into, but I was like, the Rams may possibly have the five best players, especially when I started thinking about my impact. I'm like, if we start really going impact, but then I was like, I got to give shout out to the talent and one of the guys at Cincinnati that had an amazing year. But I don't know when you look at talent, when you start thinking about the five best players, I'm like, it's a little lopsided to be
It
honest.
it it really is. Now, Cincinnati's really good across the board, but as far as like and not just stars, we're not talking about stars. We're talking about the actual best players on the field. It's hard to overlook. When I was doing my list, the first thing I do when I do a list is I throw the names out there, and then I rank them because I don't want to. If I try to think of them in order, I get ahead of myself. So I did like immediately who I thought the 10 best players were. And then I kind of went from there and whittled it down. I factored in, not only did I factor in, how good they are individuals, I did factor in like kind of how important they are to their team's success and like, man, who would be the worst guy to lose? Who would be the worst guy to not show up that day or whatever. That's so we're kind of on the same plane here. So without further ado, I'll show me and Mo's list. I'm going to warn you, like it's top five, so there's going to be a lot of overlapping here. We understand this, but and then we'll go down through it here. So there we are. On the Jeff Needs Sports side, number one, I got Cooper Cup. Number two, I got Aaron Donald. Number three, I got Jalen Ramsey, all Rams so far. Number four, I got Trey Henderson for Cincinnati defensive lineman. And number five, I got Jamar Chase, Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver. On the right side, I got Up in Flames side. Mo's list is one, Aaron Donald, defensive lineman, the Los Angeles Rams, which he might be the number one player in football, people would argue. Number two, Jalen Ramsey, defensive back, Los Angeles Rams. Number three, Cooper Cup, wide receiver, Los Angeles Rams. And then he's got at number four, Jamar Chase, wide receiver, Cincinnati Bengals. And at number five, the one difference we have, he's got his number five, he's got Matt Stafford, the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams. So before we get to our differences, we'll talk about the common guys here. You put Donald number one. I got Donald number two. So I'll start with you. Like, just I know it. I don't know how quick you said Aaron Donald, but how did you just? What was your knee jerk reaction to put Donald at one?
He was the first name that I thought about when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna rank Aaron Donald. Like you said, he's arguably the best player in football, and that's kind of where I came up with Aaron Donald being number one. His impact on the game since he's been in the league, obviously. But then, like I said, I kind of thought about like impact on this game in particular on the Super Bowl, and I think when we talk about the Bengals' weakness, I think this is a game where he possibly has a Super Bowl MVP campaign-ish game in this game. I think this is the wrong guy that the Bengals want to have to see opposite their poor offensive line. I mean, saw what the Titans did. And then obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about honorable mentions and stuff, but you talk about that front seven that they're going to have to face with Aaron Donald leading. And man, I mean, that's just how he was number one. He was the first. Like when I
Yeah,
thought about top five, I'm like the best player on the field. When they step on after the coin toss and they put their cleats on that turf, Aaron Donald's the best player on the field.
Yeah, I agree with purely the best player on the field, and that's most games. I went with Cup number one. I went with Donald number two. We'll talk about Cup here in a second. I went with Donald number two basically because I really, really tried to think about it. And I really believe that just the way they're playing right now and everything that Cup has done, especially in the playoffs, not to mention, I mean, he's had damn near the best wide receiver season in history. Just what he means right now to Stafford. So he kind of keeps two players going. And that's what to me, that's why I put Cup over Donald, even though I think that Donald, I totally agree. This is his game. I think this is Aaron Donald's Super Bowl. I think this is exactly like Reggie White back when he went to Green Bay and he beat the Patriots in '97 and he owned that game and it was all about him. I think this is Aaron Donald's game, so I got Aaron Donald too, even though it was really splitting hairs towards the end. So we'll go. So at number two, you got Jalen Ramsey. I got Jalen Ramsey at number three. I got Ramsey there just because I think he's the best defensive back in the game by far. I think he might be the best defensive back in the league throughout the year, but he's also a guy when you talk about what they need, what the Bengals need to do offensively, like Ramsey is going to be so key to making the defense go, to helping. I mean, I don't know if he goes one-on-one with Chase. We'll get into that here in a second. I'll ask you, but so I went with Ramsey. I think he's the third best player on the field, and I think he might be the third most important player in the game for the Rams. So you got Ramsey at two. Talk about Jalen Ramsey a little bit.
Yeah, once again, this is a guy who's probably a top five player, regardless of position in football. When you just talk about impact, especially when you have the resume that he has year in and year out, we saw what he did. Obviously, we go back to Jacksonville when they made the AFC Championship. But even still, I think about what his impact has to be on this game. And so knowing that even if he's the third most talented, he's going to have probably the most important impact outside of Aaron Donald. I think Aaron Donald could possibly have the easier job. I think Jalen Ramsey has the toughest job of anybody on the field when it comes to this Super Bowl on next Sunday. That's why I put him at number two, because part of it was talent. The other part to me was impact and what you need from that person. And I think he's the second most important guy because, like you said, I mean, essentially that wide receiver group of Boyd, Higgins, and Chase, we would imagine Jalen Ramsey is going to follow Jamar Chase around all day. And so if you have that task, that could be what eats away. If Jalen Ramsey doesn't do his job, that could be what eats away at the Rams and ultimately makes this game a shootout. So I think if you could take Jalen Ramsey, you could take Jamar Chase out of the game, you take a whole nother weapon. So you already take one read away from Joe Burrow, which makes his time to the time that he has to throw the ball makes it a lot shorter with a lot more firepower coming at him. So I think Jalen Ramsey is very, very, very. I almost think he has the most important job in this game, but I just think Aaron Donald, to me, he's the best player.
I think I agree with that. I think I totally agree with everything you said. I think Ramsey, if Ramsey can go, if he can go single coverage with Chase just enough times. We saw it burn Kansas City. The few times that they tried to go with Chase, one-on-one, they completely failed. It cost them the game-winning touchdown, the game-tying touchdown, all these things. Like if Ramsey can hold up, to Jamar Chase or whoever, it might be Higgins. The Cincinnati's kind of loaded at wide receiver. They got a nice receiving core and with across the board. But Ramsey's got to make a play. It might be simply a pass defended. It might be an interception. Who knows? He's going to be out too. This is another one of those games that it feels like I think all these Rams, the one thing they all have in common is they know how important this game is. That you don't just walk, especially after seeing what happened to the Chiefs last week. In year 4 of their dynasty. Now they've got all these questions about them. I don't think the Rams want to take this game for granted and waste it. I think they want to be more like the Bucs last year, understand what's ahead of them, and play hard. And I think Ramsey is the guy to do that. So now number 3, you got Cooper Kupp. I got Cooper Kupp at 1. So just talk a little bit about Cooper Kupp, and then I already explained why I put him up to 1.
So when I look at Cooper Kupp, what he's done is nothing short of amazing this year. He's the best wide receiver in the league. He's in unprecedented waters. I think he's like 18 yards away from having the most receiving yards in a single playoff run. So I'm pretty sure he'll get that. But when I look at his importance, I'm like, there's a guy who showed us last week that he could get over 100 yards and make a huge impact that you have to be concerned about, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. And so when I look at that, when I think about it, Cooper Kupp, immensely talented, just as important, ranks number one at his position, just like Ramsey does and just like Donald does. But when you talk about impact, it's like, okay, if he's taken out of the game for at any point, then they have to worry about Eli Apple guarding Odell Beckham. So I think there's a
Great
scapegoat
point.
for Cooper Kupp to not play his greatest game this in this matchup in the Super Bowl. I think there's a fine line where, like, if he has 50, 60 yards, but Odell Beckham has a big game, that Rams offense will still remain explosive enough for them to get the job done and win the Super Bowl. So that's why I put him at 3.
Yeah, and I like this matchup for Kupp in this game is why I got him at 1. Everything you just said, I think it's so important. I think he has proven this year that he finds a way, he finds the seams and the holes in all these defenses. And I talked about it a few weeks ago with my friend Dan. He plays like the same type of role as far as like, giving your quarterback the open spot, but instead of getting 10 yards, like we used to have a possession receiver, this guy gets chunks. Like he's made 2 or 3 of the biggest plays in the playoffs already. Like he finds a seam, but he turns it into 35 yards. His catch radius is huge for a guy that, that can run the routes he does. I think he's crucial. And I really think he can expose some major weaknesses in Cincinnati defense. The Cincinnati defense has played good as of late, and a lot of it's because of a guy I'll talk about here in a minute. But the truth is, throughout the season, their secondary can be got. It really can. We saw it the first half of the Chiefs game. They looked like they had no idea what was going on until they switched things up. That's a different conversation that we've had a couple times already. But I really think that, and I think again that Kupp makes Stafford go. And I think that's you got your quarterback's got to have a good game. He's going to need that guy. Kupp's got to bail him out a couple times, and I think he's kind of the engine that's going to make this thing go for him. So that's why I got him at 1. Still at 3. We're on the same plane here. So number 4, we finally have a guy that's on my list and not on your list. I put Trey Hendrickson in from Cincinnati. This guy has had a wonderful playoff. He had a great season coming up from New Orleans, kind of unheralded. This, how defensive linemen always are. Even Aaron Donald, for a couple years, there was just whispers about, hey man, have you seen this guy out in LA? Hey man, have you seen this guy out in LA? By the time he gets like year 5, everybody's like, oh wait, he's the best defensive lineman we've ever seen? Hendrickson is not at that level, but as far as like he said quietly, a really good season. And what I saw him do to Mahomes last week, he really, really bothered him. And that's what's important. Just bothered him. Just if it wasn't getting, actually getting close to him or getting contact, or it was had a hand in the air at the right time. He knows when to drop back and just try to make a screen, try to block a pass or something, get a paw on it and bat it down. He's made huge plays that way. I think to me, he's the most important part of the Cincinnati defense in the Super Bowl. If he doesn't go good, or if they can stall him, I don't think, I think Cincinnati's in big trouble. So I've actually had Trey Henderson to 4, and I think he's purely going, at the end of next year, I think we'll be talking about how he's one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. What do you think of Trey Henderson? How was he close on your list? Did he make the top 10?
Yeah. Oh, he easily made the top 10. He was 6. He was
Oh
honorable
wow.
mention. The next 2, if I was to do 6 or 7, they actually would be Cincinnati Bengals players. One of them would just be for the simple fact his impact is going to be very important. We can talk about the importance of everybody's impact.
Oh yeah.
But he's played absolutely amazing. He's done what you needed him to do. When we thought like he would miss a playoff game, we thought that was going to be key for Cincinnati anyway. And so we've counted him out or whatever. But I think this offensive line for the Rams is very stout. They don't give up a lot of sacks. I mean, you can apply pressure. He's going to be very important, but talent-wise, I think he'd be in top 5. I mean, he's 6. Like, for me, he's 6. But when I look at his impact, I don't know how much he will have or how much he'll have to have. I mean, because you always say, like, the key to getting to a quarterback is applying pressure. But at the same time, I don't know if, like, the key is, like, the difference will be whether he rattles Stafford or not. Like, I still think whether he gets to Stafford or not, the Bengals will definitely have an opportunity to win this game. And I think it's going to come in the pass game, which for the guy who I put at number 7, I think he's going to be very key. I talked about how Jalen Ramsey has the toughest job, but I think, when we start talking about the honorable mentions, this guy, I think he's going to have almost just as tough of an assignment and a task to ultimately impact the game. But Trey Henderson, I mean, being in the top 5 definitely isn't outlandish.
Yeah, and here's what I'm banking on, and we'll get into it here in a second with our honorable mentions. I'm banking that he wins his battle, and that's what I had him at 6 or 7, and then I'm like, you know what? I think he's going to win that day because I was trying to decide between him and Whitworth, to be honest with you, and I'm like, I think Hendrickson's going to win the battle, and so I edged him up to 4, and we'll see, but I really think he's pivotal. So you're number 4. We got a Cincinnati Bengal finally on your list.
Yeah.
I don't know why you love the Rams so much, but so we got Jamar Chase. I don't think we're surprising anybody here. I've got him at 5. I'll just say that right away. So we're probably in the same ballpark. I'll tell you, I'll go first. I had him more just because he can do so much and he puts so much pressure on a defense, and he's proven, game in and game out that even as last week, he has the biggest touchdown of the game and so on and so forth. Burrow, trust him. Burrow's going to need him in this game, just like Stafford's going to need Kupp. He's physically talented. He's a matchup nightmare. You got to worry about him on every play. He reminds me of the best version of Odell Beckham Jr., which Odell Beckham Jr. is he's a little older player now, but at one point it was like, you can't take your eye off of him for one play, or it can be an 80-yard touchdown. So as far as a game breaker, as far as an outlet guy, as far as I think the pressure doesn't get to him, the big plays. The only reason I even debated was because he's a rookie. And then I'm like, hey, I got to wipe that out of my head. This guy's proven it for 20 games now. So I went Jamar Chase 5. You went 4. What do you think of Jamar Chase? Obviously you like him.
Yeah. I mean, elite talent, great rookie year. I think, this is a guy who's going to be in your top 3 to top 5 wide receivers year in and year out from here on out. Starting with the preseason position rankings, that's what people love is where do you have their guy ranked at? I think he's going to be a top 3 to top 5 wide receiver for the next 6 to 8 years at the very least. He's elite. He skipped that year and everybody had questions about him. I was high on Jamar Chase going into the draft. I said he would be the most impactful offensive rookie this year. And he's held true to that. His team is in the Super Bowl. And what I love more about Chase than anything is that I feel like, and it's still going just because people can't put their pride to the side, but he should have ended the whole who was more important for the Bengals, drafting Penny Sewell, drafted Jamar Chase. Like, he made me look great. I was mock drafting him there. He outdid his counterpart, Justin Jefferson, after sitting out a year. That's what people were afraid of. 1 year away from football is 3 to 4 years away from anything else when you talk about the equivalent, even though he's a young guy. But, I mean, like you said, I talk about Jalen Ramsey, and his most important job is going to be stopping Jamar Chase. But this is going to be Jamar Chase's toughest matchup he's probably had all year, especially if it's one-on-one. I mean,
the thing is, though, man,
Ramsey's not on him. I think that's when Chase, if Ramsey is not one-on-one with him, following him the whole game, those plays where Ramsey is not lined up over Chase will be the biggest plays of the game for Cincinnati's offense, because that is when Jamar Chase is going to have to take full advantage for the simple fact that he is better and can outwork the guy in front of him as long as it's not Jalen Ramsey.
Especially with the Rams. I mean, Eric Weddle's a smart guy, but that dude was doing the same thing we are a couple weeks ago. There's no way to describe, like, there is a weakness in that defense as good as Weddle's played so far. And Chase is just a guy that, and the Bengals have proven so far that they can take advantage of that one play. And we talk about teams all year, Mo. We talk about teams that are like, they miss that one play, and that's the difference in these great teams. The Bengals always seem to, when they get the matchup, Burrow seems to find it, the coaches seem to find it, and they seem to expose it, and Chase will just bury a team. I mean, whether it's a screen pass going for 70 yards or whatever, they just, as soon as they get the matchup they like, last week Kansas City brings a safety down, it's a touchdown. I mean, they recognize it. They, we talk about all these quarterbacks like, oh, they missed that, they missed this. They don't seem to miss it. And so, like, if you make 3 mistakes, you might give up 2 touchdowns and another 50 yards to Jamar Chase and completely turn the Super Bowl around. Tyreek Hill fashion. Tyreek Hill can do that to a team. Like, you make a mistake and he's gone. It's peace symbols that he's out. But I like Jamar Chase too. So you're number 5. I already went through my 5. You got Matt Stafford, quarterback, Los Angeles Rams. I had him. I think I couldn't really decide. I didn't completely rank him, but I think I went 7 with Stafford. I had him in my top 5 at first, and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I know how important he is, but if we're just going to put important, then Stafford and Burrow are 1 and 1, right? Like, if we're just going with importance. So then I'm like, well, and Stafford's played great. It's not a knock, but it's just these other players are just so good and such standouts that I've got Stafford just out of my top 5. So what do you like about Matt Stafford that you've seen this year? Has he answered the questions and so on and so forth?
Well, he has one more question to answer, right? Like he has the question of all questions to answer. He's proven, the Rams right, the front office right, making that move. They felt like they were essentially a Matt Stafford type of quarterback away from returning to a Super Bowl and possibly winning. So, if they do end up winning, that would stand true. I put him on there solely to put the pressure on Matt Stafford. I think he's just as talented as anyone, almost just as talented as any one of these guys. We know he can sling the ball around across the field, but I'm putting the pressure on Matt Stafford. Hold me true that I put you on this list, because there's a few guys that I think are a little more important. But the Rams lose this game if Matt Stafford has his pick six, episode, or he has multiple turnovers. Like, the Rams lose this game. They cannot afford to turn the ball over, and I think they need a effort, not just effort. They need a performance at the very least.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I think so, because the thing about it, we look at Aaron Donald, we look at Jalen Ramsey. We know that defense can make up, but what's the biggest thing? When you play a high-powered offense, if you're not putting points on the board, your defense gives eventually. It could be the second quarter, it could be the third quarter, it could be a trench fight, and it's 6-3. And the Rams have done everything they could do. The Bengals have done everything they could do, and one of these defenses are going to bite, and it's going to be the big plays. And so if Matt Stafford's not holding, if the defense is playing great and he's not holding down his end, they don't win this game. It's not going to come down to the defense when you look back and it's all said and done. It might even be a low-scoring game, but it'll be that one or two times. If it's a low-scoring game, it'll be that one or two times the defense gave up the big plays, or because Matt Stafford or Joe Burrow didn't make the big plays when the defense finally had a letdown, one play, two plays. I really think that could be the difference if the Rams don't blow out the Bengals just because of all the talent. But I'm putting the pressure on Matt Stafford. You want to be in the top 5, you want to make me look good, and let me beat my chest on you having a great performance, then repeat last week, repeat 2 weeks ago, for 250 plus, throwing for multiple touchdowns. Like, I need a repeat of last week's performance, minus the interception, and I think he could do that. And we know Matt Stafford is a wonderfully talented player when it comes to throwing a thrower of the football.
He's played great. I mean, the Rams had that really bad month in the middle of the season, but these playoffs, Stafford's really played. He's made some really great throws. Again, he's found the weak, like when they've got a weakness in the defense, they've exposed it. He's taken chunks. He's done really good on third down. He had the one play last week that it wound up being nothing because was it Tart dropped the what really should have been a really, really tough interception to overcome for the Rams, but he did. He dropped it, so I can't put that on Stafford. That was the one Detroit Lions Stafford throw that he made that I'm like, ugh. But overall, Stafford's really had a good playoffs, and again, it's the third down throws, it's the getting it into the windows, and getting everybody involved. Whether it's OBJ or Cup or taking advantage of the mismatches and the open guy and stuff like that. I think he's really. I mean, obviously, this game hinges on him. I mean, everybody's looking at him right now. The narrative is on the Super Bowl. The young guy it's like, it doesn't matter what he does. He's right now, everybody's like, Joe Burrow is going to go to the next 20 Super Bowls, even though we know that's not how it works out. You know what I mean?
No matter how talented he is and no matter how bad he plays in this game, there's no pressure on Joe Burrow.
No.
And that's dangerous. That's what's dangerous. And that's also why I didn't make my top 5, because I don't think where I rank him as a quarterback anyway, I can't put him there because he's barely top 10 quarterback.
Okay, let's talk about where you had Joe Burrow. Let's just have the Joe Burrow conversation, because I had him, I think, probably 7.
I had him at 9.
I think that's fair.
Because there's no pressure. Like, if he plays bad, nobody cares. Like, it's that plain and simple. Like, it's not gonna. The fact that he took the Bengals to the Super Bowl, he was the head honcho of this Bengals Super Bowl team. He's done enough to earn his respect for moving forward. So, like, if he plays bad and
considering the
game and Jalen Ramsey has a game, nobody cares. Nobody's going to say Burrow's a fraud. Not in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's kind of where Goff was a few years ago for the Rams. Like, nobody really cares that Goff lost that Super Bowl.
No,
against the Patriots.
A couple years later, when they're like, okay, this is the same team that made it to the Super Bowl. You took away Todd Gurley, proved everything we said that you needed the playmakers around you. It wasn't you that got us there. It was our defense and Todd Gurley having an MVP-like season. And so, but that's not the case with Joe Burrow, but it is this year. It's like, okay, if he loses, like, you get multiple years to redeem yourself before we really fall out of love with you or fall deeply in love with you.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's why I put him at 9. I mean, talent wise, yeah, but
I don't even. I mean,
really
really, talent.
as a quarterback. So
Burrow's a good quarterback, but I mean, I know it sounds like I'm saying a what if situation here, but the Kansas City really. I mean, that game should have been put away. He was slipping sacks that he shouldn't have slipped. I don't think he'll slip them against the Rams. I don't see him escaping, those tackles like he did last week. I just everything. He took advantage of all the mistakes by the Chiefs, but also he's a hard one to explain. He's one of these guys that he makes the throws when they need him. He's doing a really good job of reading defenses and stuff. But as far as like just where he's at, he's second year coming off the knee injury and everything. His talent level, I think, to put him at 9, if you told me a year ago next year we're going to rank him the 9th best player in the Super Bowl, everybody would be like,
we would
yeah,
tell
we're canceling our subscription to Off the Ball Network YouTube, which everybody ought to subscribe to, by the way.
And if you think about it with Joe Burrow, here's my biggest thing about him, and it's not a knock. It's like you don't remember the bad Joe Burrow plays because he makes the right good. When he needs to make a good play, he makes it. And that's what great quarterbacks do. Now, obviously, there's a little more consistency with them, but I mean, he's carried his team to I ain't gonna say he carried his team to the Super Bowl. That would be disrespectful to the other players, but he's done what he needed to do to get
Absolutely.
Get his team to the Super Bowl. And he makes bad plays or doesn't, but when he needs to make a play, when it absolutely needs to happen, Joe Burrow makes it. And that makes you in that moment forget about everything prior to that, because from that play moving forward, it caused the touchdown. It would score the touchdown. Just remember, like, he was getting sacked. This goes back to when they played Kansas City in the regular season. He got sacked twice and then threw an incomplete pass, bad pass. And then on 4th and 18, he throws it over the top to Jamar Chase for a first down, and they end up scoring and ultimately taking the lead in that game. That wiped out the 2 sacks that he shouldn't have took. He should have threw the ball away. That wiped out the bad throw that he made on 3rd down, because he made that play when he absolutely needed it, when the game was on the line, or the moment in the game it was on the line. If it was win or lose, Joe Burrow made it. And that's kind of been his, ever since his national championship year at LSU, that's kind of what he does. And obviously he had an elite year.
And it's early. I give him full credit to everything he's done, but you're right. I always say this. I can't watch these games and go back and watch the games and act like, the screen pass to Perrin was the biggest play of the game last week and saved the game. Right. Those count. I mean, I know it's, I know it's a long touchdown for Burrow or whatever, but what he does do is he gets up from getting sacked, the record amount of times. Like, he has been sacked a record amount of times. He's pushing, I think it's like around 60 for the year. He's obviously a tough kid. He's obviously a smart kid. People follow him. But as far as like players in this game, I can't compare him to, like, yes, my lovely mother. We do think the Rams are better than the Chiefs and the Bengals. But but I see her point. What she's she's a Bengals fan, and she's trying to say, well, wait a minute, the Bengals just beat the Chiefs. How much better are the Rams? That's a great question. That's a fair argument.
It depends on the week, essentially.
So what was weird is obviously the Bengals offensive line, I really couldn't come up with anybody. They've done an all right job of kind of circling the wagons after the Tennessee game, and they're in the Super Bowl. Full credit. They're in the Super Bowl, but I couldn't come up with a guy that was good enough to put even in my top 10. The Rams do it by unit. I personally am not, I don't have a good enough eye for offensive linemen to pick the best offensive lineman. Did you have any offensive linemen around your top 10?
It would have been Whitworth.
Whitworth,
he was kind of like peaking, his importance. I mean, I tried to figure out a way to put my bias in there and have like Isaiah Prince in the top 10 because, former Buckeye. Let me put my bias fully in there and see if I can slip him in there.
Bias could have,
but I got another former Buckeye in there in the top 10. So because I think Von Bell is highly important in this game.
You think he's better than Bates on that team?
I think he's going to be more important than Bates.
Well, that wasn't the list, Mo Murphy.
But I got Bates in there too. I got both of the safeties.
I think Bates is top 10
ahead of Von Bell. I had Von Bell at 10. I got Bates at 7.
Yeah, but then this is where once you get to that 10 number, that's where you start figuring in Von Miller. You start figuring in
Floyd, Odell Beckham Jr.
Exactly. OBJ could. there's a world where we'll do this later. We'll do some Super Bowl previews, coming up for Off the Ball Network. But there's a world where OBJ is Super Bowl MVP, and I don't think it's that unrealistic because of everything that we've said tonight.
And
But
I think T. Higgins would also have an opportunity to do that too.
absolutely,
Ramsey. If Jalen Ramsey is the guy that takes Jamar Chase out of the game, then if they win this game and their offense comes from somewhere, Burrow could throw for 220 and 2 touchdowns, but 115, 120 of that was to T. Higgins and 2 touchdowns.
yeah.
And there you go. So there's really so much talent on this team. And the only focus will be the fact that Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, and Aaron Donald will be able to take advantage of that offensive line. That's the factor why people would shy away from betting on the Bengals. Like, it's -4.5, I think, right now. But that offensive line having to stop, probably the best defensive line in space.
And they haven't done it all year. It would there is nothing that anybody can see that would make you think they can't. If San Francisco got bullied around, they got a really good offensive line.
Ryan Tannehill isn't Stafford either. Like, you're not
right.
Joe Burrow. The Rams will not sack Joe Burrow 9 times and lose that game. Like, because Matt Stafford is obviously better than Ryan Tannehill, but that was the difference. Was like, if the Tennessee Titans had a slight upgrade at quarterback, and it doesn't have to be huge, a slight upgrade. Derek Carr on the Tennessee Titans wins that game. Like, that's the
you're right though.
Like, Dak Prescott on the Tennessee Titans wins that game. Like, I don't need the biggest upgrade. I didn't need a top 5 quarterback, but I needed a guy that could really make those plays when you need them to, especially when your defense is doing that job. And because they made those type of plays, knocked them down 9 times, sacked them 9 times. Yeah, it's just a slightest upgrade. So to me, Matt Stafford is a major upgrade from Ryan Tannehill. So if they get to him 9 times, it might be a boring Super Bowl. We might be entertained for the halftime show, and then we'll start going to bed early, stop drinking, start shaking off the hangover, prepping for the hangover, take your Tylenol, drink your water.
We'll be scheduling a show. You know that. We'll be like, hey,
but still, it'll just be one of those but I don't think it turns out that way, but it has the potential to turn out that way. If they're getting to them like Tennessee was, that Rams offense is not the Tennessee Titans offense, especially Derrick Henry wasn't fully healthy. They got the plethora of running backs. They got the receiving core and they got Matt Stafford leading the helm. Like that, it would.
That's what I was going to say. He didn't make my top 10, but as far as just in this one game, Cam Akers could have a really good game. Like, he's, because when last week when Cincinnati dropped 8 on Kansas City, they did zero to help out Mahomes. Stafford would easily give it to Akers and let him take 10-yard chunks at a time. Like, just kind of like the Tampa Bay game, I would say it'd be closer to that, but we'll see. But the fumbles, obviously, there's no way I could put him in the top 10 with the fumbles he's had, and he's had the year off and all that. But as far as
top 10, Hubbard,
but as far as if we was doing a show on who could be impactful in this game, I got Akers right up there. Like, I think he's well, you know what, and Mixon too. But I mean, Mixon,
the running backs, the running game could be huge.
It could be, but then we're to okay, it's probably not. We know how this is going to go. It's going to be quarterbacks throwing the ball all over the field, and no lead is safe. So
that's what the world wants to see. We want to see the quarterbacks. We want to see a Joe Burrow versus Matt Stafford shootout. Like, if I could get a 42-38 Super Bowl, perfect for me. Like, I'm just dog in this fight. So give me 42-38. Joe Burrow and Matt Stafford both have legendary performance. Just one has to win. Give me a Nick Foles versus Brady again. Let me get a Nick.
Let's face it. For all the conspiracy theorists and the game is rigged. If there was ever a Super Bowl that was going to be rigged to try and make people forget about what's going on in the NFL, this would be one of them. This might be a 59-57 double overtime shootout.
I would take it. Take it between Burrow. I'd take 2. Give me a repeat of the Eagles and Patriots where Brady threw for over 500 yards.
Yeah, I believe so.
Threw for multiple touchdowns. It was in the high scoring game. Like, I'm an offensive guy. I don't want to see a trenches 17-14.
I want to see a guy get sacked 10 times, but I also want to see him throw for 500 yards. I want both. I want defensive.
Figure out a way. He threw 2
basketball. Is what I'm talking about.
Yards. Yeah, he threw 2 picks, but still threw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Oh, man.
Turnovers were a pick 6. They answered right back off of that. Like, that's the type of football I want to see. I don't want to see any more. Let's just ground and pound and win in the trenches and 17-14 out of there and hoist the Lombardi trophy. Like, nah, I don't want to see that. I saw 10-3 a few years ago, and that was one of the most disappointing Super Bowls I've ever seen in my
I
life.
like that game, but I don't want to see it again. I actually just rewatched that Rams Patriots game again the other day. I won money on it too. That helps. I'm not gonna lie, but I watched it again, and it was bad. But
It was just
I
defense, like
yeah, but some of it was bad offense. Like Jared
yeah,
Goff,
it
if
was.
Jared Goff, if they have Matt Stafford that game, they win a Super Bowl by 20 that night. That night,
Yeah,
like that
because
was
if that offense was putting out that output where
yeah.
they only scored 10 points, like yeah, Matt Stafford scores more than 3 points in that game. He scores more than 10 points in that game. But that's what I don't want to see that. And like even when you look at it, like it does have the potential that it can be a dogfight early, but points are going to be scored at some point. Like
Yeah.
the offenses are going to go up. I know your mom said she wants to see 58-0 Bengals at halftime. I think I would love to see that story though. Like if they were up 50-0, I think like, you know what? Let's bring the whole Joe Burrow's the next Tom Brady. Create
Oh,
content for the next 2
oh,
weeks. I'm good with that. Joe
oh my
Burrow
goodness.
is Tom
Well,
Brady
like,
reincarnated.
obviously, it's obvious that you don't live in Ohio because I don't want that at all. I'm full. I'm full.
Well, yeah,
So,
but I don't live in Ohio, so I don't have to deal with that, especially on a daily basis. I don't know really. I mean, a lot of my family is in Cincinnati and they're Bengals fans, but
oh my.
yeah, a lot of them like they live in Cincinnati or Columbus, so a lot of them are Bengals fans. They have a dog in this fight. I don't care. Like if my family's upset about, I just want to see a great Super Bowl. But
And
Bengals were
let's
up
put
at halftime. Joe Burrow
and
is like
we can put something to bed too. They're like, let's not play this. It's us against the world. It's -4.5. That's
yeah,
not
they're not
that's
bad
no.
underdogs.
I'm tired of hearing this. Like nobody believes in us. Well, apparently a bunch of people do because it's 4.5.
Because
Like
any
that's
other time, if I could see if you were like a touchdown, 6.5 or more,
anything over a touchdown. Yeah,
in the
anything over
Super
a
Bowl. Like,
touchdown.
and I even say 6.5 just because that means like the Rams are going to win by a touchdown. Like if you're betting on the
Yeah,
Rams, they at least win by 7.
right.
Which turns out not when you're bet from a betting standpoint, yeah, but losing by a touchdown doesn't mean you got blown out. Like
That's what I'm saying.
21 could be like it was 21-21. Matt Stafford had the ball with 2 minutes left and he scored a touchdown. We only were
Yeah,
left with 40 seconds and couldn't answer. And then like, okay, you lost by 7, but that's not you didn't get blown out. You didn't
you
get
could
manhandled the whole game. Like it
you
could
could
come down to that.
you could lose by a touchdown in overtime and lose by 6, and that beats the point spread, and you went to overtime in the Super Bowl. So I'm just saying. So all right, Mo Murphy. Hey, thanks so much for doing this, man. Everybody that's watching on Off the Ball Network YouTube, we appreciate it. Subscribe. Go find Up in Flames anywhere you get podcasts. Subscribe to that. I'm Jeff Needs Sports. We got a lot more stuff coming up, and we got about 10 days now to get ready for the big show, and we're ready for it over here at the network. I know Mo's ready. You got a lot of stuff going on, don't you, Mo?
Yeah, I do. Between covering the draft, thinking about what we're doing, really for Super Bowl week. I
Oh
know we're
go check out the Draft Capital NFL too. I'm sorry, I'm glad you brought that up, man. A lot of good stuff going on right now. Go to Off the Ball Network on Twitter, Facebook. You guys know how to find us. All the links will be in the audio version of this. You're all great. We hope it's a good Super Bowl. Mo Murphy, thanks for being here, and we're out.